The sun was setting over the calm waters of the lakeside resort, casting golden and orange hues across the surface. Alex sat on a wooden bench, looking out at the tranquil scene, but inside, his mind was anything but peaceful. He had imagined this trip as something special, a break from the routine, a moment for him and his fiancée, Emma, to share with his family before they began their life together as husband and wife. The resort was perfect, quiet, beautiful, and surrounded by nature. They had arrived just yesterday, greeted by his family with open arms and warm smiles. Emma had always fit in so well with them. She laughed with his mother, talked about wedding plans with his sister Sarah, and charmed his younger cousins with her playful teasing. It was all so perfect, or at least it seemed that way. For months, Alex had been planning this trip. It was meant to be a time for bonding, a time to relax, and, most importantly, a time to make final decisions about their future together. But now, as he sat by the lake, the trip felt like something else entirely. What was meant to be a celebration of their relationship had taken a dark turn, one that he could never have predicted. As Alex gazed out at the water, his mind raced back to the first signs that something was wrong. He hadn't noticed it at first. Emma's subtle distractions, the way her eyes had been glued to her phone more often than usual. But now, everything seemed so obvious, so painfully clear. The night before, they had all gathered around a bonfire. The warmth of the flames had been comforting, and the laughter from his family felt like home. Emma sat beside Alex, her hand in his, but something was off. Her attention wasn't fully on the stories being shared or the jokes being told. Instead, she kept glancing down at her phone, smiling at something on the screen, before quickly tucking it away. Alex noticed but didn't say anything. After all, she'd told him earlier that some old friends were in town, and they were catching up over messages. It didn't seem like a big deal. As the fire crackled and the night grew darker, Alex felt a strange sense of unease. Emma's laughter seemed forced, her touches a little less affectionate. When they went to bed that night, she was unusually quiet, her eyes distant as she stared at the ceiling before falling asleep. Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, but he pushed the thought aside. He didn't want to overthink things, especially not when they were supposed to be enjoying a peaceful vacation with his family. The next morning, however, Alex's suspicions grew stronger. Emma woke up early, far earlier than usual. She had been texting again, smiling at her phone as she slipped out of bed quietly, thinking Alex was still asleep. He pretended not to notice as she tiptoed out of the cabin, closing the door gently behind her. What he didn't know was that Emma wasn't just going for a morning walk to clear her head or enjoy the fresh air. She was meeting up with her friends who happened to be staying nearby. They shared secretive smiles and disappeared toward a secluded part of the resort. Alex, still half asleep, assumed everything was fine, but the nagging feeling in his gut told him otherwise. As the day went on, Alex found it harder to ignore the small but unsettling changes in Emma's behavior. They spent most of the afternoon with his family, playing games, going for a swim, and relaxing by the water. But Emma seemed distant, even though she smiled and participated in conversations. Alex noticed that every time she thought no one was looking, she was checking her phone. It wasn't just one or two texts, it was constant, like she couldn't stop herself from looking. And every time she did, her face showed a flicker of something Alex couldn't quite place. Guilt, maybe. Or was it excitement? Later that evening, as they were preparing for dinner, Alex's sister, Sarah, pulled him aside. Her face was serious, concerned. "Hey, have you noticed anything off with Emma lately?" she asked, her eyes scanning the room where Emma was chatting with his mother. "What do you mean?" Alex asked, trying to sound nonchalant. "I don't know. She seems distant, and she's been texting a lot. I saw her leave this morning with some people. Did she tell you about that?" Sarah's voice was low, careful not to alarm him, but the worry in her eyes was unmistakable. Alex shrugged it off, feeling a twinge of defensiveness rise in his chest. "Yeah, she mentioned meeting up with some friends. It's probably nothing." But even as he said the words, he felt a gnawing doubt creeping in. Was he being too trusting? Sarah's words echoed in his mind, and as the evening progressed, Alex became more and more aware of Emma's detachment. She wasn't just being distant. There was something else, something she was hiding. When Alex overheard a vague, suggestive conversation between his cousin and one of Emma's friends, his stomach twisted. They were talking in hushed voices, and while he couldn't make out every word, the tone was enough to set off alarm bells in his mind. That night, Alex couldn't take it any longer. He needed answers, no matter how much he feared what they might be. After dinner, he found Emma sitting by the lake, with a group of her friends, laughing and chatting, as if everything was normal. But the laughter died down when Alex approached, and the awkward silence that followed was almost unbearable. "Emma, can we talk?" Alex asked, his voice steady but tense. Emma's smile faded, and she looked nervous. She glanced at her friends, who exchanged quick looks before she nodded. "Sure, what's up?" They walked away from the group, heading toward the quiet edge of the lake, where the moonlight reflected off the water. Alex stopped when they were alone, turning to face her. His heart was pounding, but he had to ask. He couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. "I know something's going on," Alex began, his voice low but firm. "You've been distant. You're sneaking off with your friends, constantly on your phone. What's really happening?" Emma's face fell. She hesitated, glancing down at her feet before looking back at Alex. The guilt was written all over her face. "Alex," she started, her voice barely above a whisper, "I didn't mean for you to find out like this." Alex's heart sank. The words hit him like a punch to the gut. He had hoped, desperately, that he was wrong, that his suspicions were just paranoia. But now, standing in front of her, seeing the truth in her eyes, he knew. "So it's true?" he asked, his voice breaking. "You've been seeing someone else during this trip?" Emma looked down, unable to meet his eyes. Her silence was all the confirmation Alex needed. He felt a wave of anger and heartbreak wash over him, a mixture of emotions so intense that he couldn't even process them. He had trusted her, loved her, and now she was tearing that trust apart. For a moment, Alex stood there stunned, his mind reeling from the betrayal. He wanted to yell, to demand answers, to make her explain how she could do this to him, especially here, surrounded by his family. But the words wouldn't come. All he could feel was the weight of his heartbreak pressing down on him. His chest tightened, and his eyes burned with unshed tears. He couldn't believe it had come to this. Without saying another word, Alex turned and walked away from Emma. He didn't know where he was going, but he couldn't be near her anymore. He couldn't stand the sight of her, the sound of her voice. He needed space, needed time to think. Behind him, he heard Emma call out his name, but he ignored her. What was the point? Nothing she could say would change what she had done. Nothing could undo the damage. As he walked back toward the cabin, his mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. How long had this been going on? Who else knew? Did his family suspect? Did her friends? The betrayal cut deeper than anything he had ever experienced. The woman he had planned to marry, the woman he thought he knew inside and out, had been lying to him. And now, everything they had built together was crumbling. The lakeside that had once felt peaceful and serene now felt cold and empty. The trip, which was supposed to be a joyful time spent with family, had turned into a nightmare. Alex stood by the water, his reflection staring back at him, and felt a sense of loss he couldn't fully describe. This wasn't just about Emma's betrayal. It was about everything. The future he had imagined, the trust he had placed in her, the love they had shared. It was all gone now, shattered by her actions. As the night wore on, Alex sat by the lake, alone with his thoughts. The pain of betrayal was sharp and deep, but as he sat there, he began to realize something. He couldn't control what Emma had done. He couldn't change the past, but he could control how he responded. He wouldn't let this break him. He wouldn't let her betrayal define him. The moon reflected on the water, casting a silver glow over the lake. It was a quiet, still moment, and in that silence, Alex made a decision. He would heal from this. It would take time, and it would be painful, but he would move forward. He would find the strength to pick up the pieces of his life and rebuild. And one day, he would find the love he deserved, someone who would cherish and respect him the way he had always wanted. With that thought, Alex stood up and walked along the lakeside, the cool night air soothing his weary mind. The trip might have ended in heartbreak, but his story wasn't over. Not yet. Thank you for being a part of Narrative Stories. Your support and engagement mean the world to us. We are committed to bringing you the best in storytelling. What kinds of stories would you like to see next? Share your thoughts in the comments below.